Thank you for joining us today with this Future Work series. We're going to be talking to you about communities, spaces, technology and well-being. My name is Mark Needham. I work in worldwide sales and strategy for Cisco, focused on WebEx and workplace transformation. With me today is Sheila.
Hi there, everybody. Wonderful to have you with us. I am Sheila Champion-Smith, and I am proud to say that I'm the Global Head of Wellbeing at Cisco. And I work within the People and Communities organization, formerly known as HR. We felt like it's really important to switch up the name, so we actually focused on the work that we actually are going after. So that's our people and the communities and supporting all of those people within. So we're no longer known as HR, it's People and Communities now for us.
Where we wanted to start is Sheila and I are lucky enough to speak with lots of customers and discuss this topic at events all over Europe. Now, obviously, a few months ago, the world got turned upside down and every part of the world was impacted by COVID. So we've had a lot of learnings over the last few months. So we want to try and share these with all of you as we go through this content today. Now, every organization in the world was in the office on a Friday. Then suddenly on a Monday, all the staff were told not to come back to the office. So organizations were panicked, they had to rush, they had to do whatever they could to have their staff working on the Monday morning. And that could have been using consumer tools to collaborate with. That could have been buying old laptops, but just ones that could be delivered on the Monday morning to ensure their staff had the tools needed to continue working. But it was a rapid, quick decision. And we're getting to a point now where people are making a decision that is more considered. And in the first instance, people thought working from home meant, oh, we just need to be able to run a meeting. And it's all well and good for that 1 hour a day when you're having a meeting to have the technology to do that. But it's much more than that. I don't know about you guys, but I spend more than an hour a day in meetings, but also more than 1 hour a day doing other things in meetings. And from a Cisco side, we had the #1 meetings platform in the world globally. 500 million unique users of the WebEx platform in April, and that continues to grow. Now, however, when you look to the longer term, remote work is more than just meetings. What remote work is, it's about doing your entire job from home, from on the move, from wherever you are. And that's a critical, important learning for many organizations. It's all well and good being able to do a video call, but how to enable people to do their entire job to drive that consistent value for the organization to help you thrive, even faced with the challenges we see today. Okay, so when we talk about it's more than a meeting, you've got to think about how you do your entire job day in, day out. Here's an example of a typical day for me. So 8 o'clock in the morning, I fire up the phone on the way to taking my children to school. I have a look at the messages that I've been sent overnight. In my case, most of my team's in the US, so there could be tasks I've been asked to work on in my morning before America wakes up. But I'll quickly get up to speed, ready to start on that and execute as soon as I've dropped the children off. Then we get to 9 o'clock and the phone starts ringing. It could be customers, it could be colleagues within Cisco, where we're working on various projects, planning the strategy, whatever it may be. But it would come through to my mobile or it would come through to my desk phone if I was in an office. Then we have a more formalized meeting. So that 1 hour meeting, full screen video, whether it's a one-to-one meeting or with a much wider group. And then as I plan what's happening the rest of the week, I'll be scheduling meetings. And straight out of my unified experience in WebEx, I can use at WebEx to schedule meetings for Microsoft, for Google Calendar, to work with whoever I need to liaise with during that week. A huge part of my job, which I love, is the brainstorming, it's the problem solving. So in an office, I could be using a big whiteboard with a felt tip pen. In our case, also within Cisco, we have interactive whiteboards. So we'll be working live with people which should be in a room or people will be further afield. And now from home, we're still delivering interactive whiteboarding experiences, but via our video endpoints, and nobody's in a room, nobody's in the office, but everybody's working remotely using their mobile phones, their tablets, or the video devices. As Sheila and I worked on this content today, obviously Sheila's at her house, I've been at my house, so we've been co-editing a file in real time, using our various devices as we bring this story together for you to ensure we made all the critical updates needed to help you provide your people and communities function with what they need for the long term. I also work with people outside of my organization. So we do a lot of work via Cisco partners. Obviously, they're not employed by Cisco. They have their own IT platforms, their own security platforms, and I can work with them via WebEx via video calls, sending messages, file transfer, whiteboarding with them, and everything we need to help they grow as an organization and Cisco grow equally. And when I was in the office, I loved the social side, the coffee breaks, the popping out at lunchtime to have a beer together. Obviously, we can't do that at the moment. So within the experience, you have emojis, animated GIFs to bring that softer side to how I do my day. So this is just a quick example of all the things I have to do to get my job done. Only one of these is a meeting. All the other elements are the things that allow me to be successful at my role and allow my part of Cisco to thrive and continue to grow. Now, that's from obviously my side. But when you think about the people side of it, the softer side of it, Sheila, how does that evolve, do you feel?
Well, I think what's important to remember is there's more to life than work. And there's a lot of things that are happening for us at the moment. More so, I think our kind of home life is really integrated so much into our work life. A lot of people may have been working remotely in the past, but there's more about what's actually going on for people in their total life that's happening at the moment. So we're trying to think about, okay, from the morning, the moment that we get up, how are we taking care of ourselves? Are we taking a moment for mindfulness? Are we going for a quick walk, a run, doing a bit of Pilates at home before we get going for the day? And then, of course, for many people, there's been the homeschooling challenges that have been a totally new phenomenon. I'm pretty sure that parents out there weren't thinking they were going to be teachers as well as having a full-time job, particularly working at Cisco. So that's been an interesting additional challenge for people. And then, of course, you know, a lot of people are finding themselves in more meetings or just on the laptop more often, or on their devices more often. And that people need to think about how they're going to actually take that time out to stretch. Are you scheduling time within the calendar to actually do that? And then, of course, as you go throughout the day, you might be thinking about what shopping needs to be done. Okay, now the dog needs to have a walk. And then you've got the mum that needs help. And all of these things in the past, you might have had other people helping you. But of course, right now, we don't have that. And so elderly parents, I think, are something that people are really having to focus on, and how do they actually find the time to go and support them? And it's more, you know, it's more prevalent now because they can't get out and do their own things at all. And of course, there's the washing and the cleaning. Some people perhaps had, you know, people helping out to do that sort of thing. But you've got all of this going on in your mind. And then, oh my goodness, you've got to be on another quiz. So there's a quiz, and now you're being asked to write the questions. When are you going to squeeze that into your day life? So, you know, Mark, you just talked about kind of what the work experience looks like, but all of these things are still happening as well for people. And there's so much more to this, and everybody's got different things going on at the moment as well. So as we think about, you know, what did flexibility look like in the past? And for Cisco, flexibility was definitely at our core. And of course, there's even more so right now. Some of these statistics were obviously before we actually went into this situation with the pandemic. But if we think about it, people were saying that they would much prefer to have flexibility over actually an increased pay. People really appreciate that. And then, you know, the working in a remote manner, it was, you know, kind of 9%, but there's so obviously we've almost gone to 99% right now. And the future is definitely going to look a lot more like that, I think. Telecommuting, people were doing that kind of, you know, once a week back then. And so we realized that, you know, 61% of people didn't really need to be in an office. And don't forget, this is before the pandemic actually came and hit us. So a lot of this information is interesting, and it was right at our core before this happened. And we were very fortunate, I think, as a company to be able to almost switch on overnight the fact that everybody was able to work from home thanks to the technology that we have in Cisco. So let's think about, what does Cisco go after? This is our new purpose as an organization. We really want to think about, how do we power an inclusive future for all? As an organization, you know, our mission is really there to help our customers reimagine applications, make sure security is front and foremost for everybody, and really transforming infrastructure, and of course empowering our teams as well. And never has this been more important than right now. And of course, we want to create the best possible customer experience in the industry as well, with our extraordinary people and fabulous technologies. And the way that we can really truly do this is living our guiding principles every single day. You can see those here on the screen. These are where you are giving your best and you're taking accountability. You're giving the ego a day off and you're taking difference to heart. And you give something of yourself and you take a bold step. and taking risks are so important. And so what we ask is our leaders and teams are really focusing on living these principles every single day.
So as Sheila shared, we are quite a mature organisation when it comes to flexibility and new working practices. And there's this concept of the digital vortex, and this relates to various industry sectors and how disrupted they are by technology. So as a technology company, we actually sit within the second most disrupted industry sector. Now, obviously, over the last few months, every single organisation, every single vertical, all around the world have been disrupted at a pace they never would have expected. So what may have felt like it's 3, 4, 5 years away for some of the industries on here happened overnight. So people had to really understand what we could do, how we could provide for our employees based on these challenges, and how the organisation could grow. Now, when you look at kind of digitalisation and the transformation organisations are trying to drive, there's value drivers and there's cost drivers that make that up. So on the value driving side, it's the drive for agility, the drive to be more responsive to the challenges which are afoot and to innovate with greater speed. You need to attract and retain the best talent. Without the best talent in your organisation, you're not going to grow and you're not going to be able to thrive. Customer engagement is about how you manage that more sophisticated relationship with your customers that have more access to knowledge, that have lower barriers to entry and exit with their relationships with their vendors of choice. And on the cost driver side of things, you look at real estate utilization. So real estate is a huge cost to organizations. So how do you maximize that spend and ensure you're using that footprint effectively? And going hand in hand with that are the tools which reside in that office and the technologies you choose to use, and how can you optimize that spend while driving maximum value? If we looked at 2019, we saw that $1.2 trillion was spent on this transformation. Now, the worrying bit was only 16% saw the gains they thought about. So if you put that back to a dollar value, over $1 trillion were wasted on failed transformations. And the reason for that, everybody's so focused on the technology and doesn't focus enough on the people, which is why the people and communities function has such a critical role to play as you go through this transformation. Now, we talk about 4 key trends when we're working alongside our customers. We're seeing an evolving workforce, a demand for flexibility, the changing nature of work, and interwoven within all that is technology disruption, the role of machine learning, AI, and how innovation impacts organizations. And we're going to talk about these in turn. So when we think about the evolving workforce, now for the first time ever, there's 4 demographics. From the baby boomers born just after the Second World War to my nieces and nephews that are now in the workforce but have been born since 1995. The reason this matters is that each and every one of these has different motivations, different work styles, and you need to harness all the uniquities and allow them to collaborate together to drive the organization forwards. Now, it is true that the millennials will become the dominant demographic in the workforce in the next 5 years, so just slightly weight more their values and their approaches from a long-term impact on the business, but you still need to manage across these 4 demographics. And what's really interesting, I think, is some of the underlying principles. So the baby boomers loved that FaceTime. They wanted to be directly in front of people. Generation X were not too bothered about that. They wanted the balance. The millennials still want that balance, but they want their organization to have a positive impact on society and expect an equal seat at the table. That psychological contract between the employer and the employee, they want to be more mutual. And when we look at Generation Z, they're very much used to FaceTime, but that could be directly in person, or it could be via video or other forms of rich interaction. And that really leads us to a really interesting place in how we bring all these elements together to drive growth.
Thanks so much, Mark. And then, so you talked about our people and the importance of them. And I think, you know, when we think of all of our people together, we want to think about what is a conscious culture. And so as we think about culture from Cisco's perspective, this is where we talk about 3 critical areas. It's the environment that we actually provide for all of our people. Are we offering an inclusive and diverse environment which helps everybody thrive? So really finding a safe place for people to be. And then, of course, the characteristics of the organization are so critical and so important. What we mean by this is, what's our company's belief? What are the behaviors that we kind of expecting of people? What are the rituals that we all have, and the principles which I shared with you earlier? What are our principles that we live by? It's so important. And then as you bring those three things together, you think about the experience that we want people to have. And not just the experience in 1 or 2 meetings, but the experience they have every single day when they come to work. And this is as individuals, but also through your leaders and the teams. So we talk about our conscious culture in Cisco. And then we think about, okay, so what is the future of work? What's all this going to look like? And we spent a lot of time studying and talking to many people across the organization, and really thinking about, what are companies actually thinking about at the moment? I think the competition for talent is absolutely key, and I'll come to talk about that in a moment. But also building diverse teams, really focusing on inclusivity is so important, to have the diverse perspectives within those teams. And of course, we're all dealing with such an accelerated rate of change. I mean, something that we never thought we'd be dealing with right now, of course. And then employees. So what are they thinking about at the moment? They're thinking about their job security now more than ever, I think. And how are they able to do meaningful work? How do they do the work and really feel like they're making a difference in the world? And of course, they do want to fulfill their careers as well. And then managers, they're thinking about, well, everything. I mean, often we have conversations, it's like, well, it's the first line manager's problem. It's like, well, actually, managers have got so much to think about. So we really need to think about how we help them and how we educate them, and make sure they know what are the key things that they should be thinking about right now. So really, just thinking about those career progressions for their people as well is so important. And I think you can't do any of this without focusing on the piece in the middle. All of us are learning. Companies are learning, employees are learning, and managers are learning. And we have to do that as we go along. As you found in the last few months, we've really been dealing with learning on the job. I don't think there's been a reference book that you can pull off the shelf that tells you how to deal with working situations during this pandemic. So yeah, it's challenging for all of us. So what we do is we focus on something called our leader expectations. Again, you'll see Cisco's guiding principles up here, and they're at the heart of everything that we expect a leader to be thinking about. There's some really important things that we expect our leaders to do. And one of these is a check-in with their people. So we ask all leaders to make sure that once a week at least, they will organize a meeting where they're checking in with their individual. We also have a tool that allows the employee to put in what their priorities are as they go forward into that check-in experience with their manager. And what I encourage people to do is not just put your work priorities within their check-in, but put your personal priorities as well. Now more than ever, our leaders need to understand what the boundaries are that we have in our life, and what we've got to deal with, so they can truly get to understand us at a deeper level. We also ask our leaders to run Engagement Pulse, which is a check-in quarterly, which allows the employees to kind of rate how they're feeling about the organization, about the work they do, and about the manager themselves as well. Of course, there's things that we expect our leaders to listen to and understand, and we make sure that the Cisco strategy is forefront of all of those things that they're taking on board. We want to ensure that they are listening to the earnings calls and joining something called our Cisco Beat, which is a regular monthly session, which has actually moved to weekly at the moment, where we're educating our employees and asking every single person to come along and join that, to learn about the business, to learn about the people, and to learn about the world and what's going on right now. And then we also ask that they make sure they are building diverse teams. So really thinking about, building a talent pool and making sure that they're doing regular reviews with their people, understanding where they're at, and really thinking about their inclusive hiring strategy, and making sure that the panel and the people that they have on that interview panel is diverse. We also ask our leaders to think about sponsoring people. I think, a lot of people understand that sponsorship is actually critical for success in an organization for our people. So really thinking about how you sponsor someone is so important right now. So we've talked a little bit about conscious culture itself within the organization, but what's conscious culture as a leader? So I think there's never been a more important time to think about our emotional intelligence and really thinking about the awareness that we have, not just as leaders, and we're all leaders at the end of the day, particularly dealing with this situation that we're in right now. But we think about awareness, and then we think about what the insights that we have, and then what do you do to take action? And when we think about our conscious culture, we think of it in three areas. There's me. What is it that I can do? How can I bring all of my potential into every interaction that I'm having with my work and with the people in the organization? So really thinking about giving your best, coming back to our principles you'll see here, giving your ego a day off. How do you deepen that self-awareness and make sure that you're acting in service as what best for Cisco and the world? And then thinking about taking a bold step as well, being discomfort, taking some risks and actually taking action on the insights that we have as well. So that's the area that's so important to think of you as an individual. And then, how do you actually work with others? So how are you taking difference to heart? I always talk about different people need different things at different times. And I think it's so important as a leader, you understand that about your teams and you understand that everybody's got something different going on right now. And there's things that you need to understand about that to get to know people on a deeper level so that you can actually be there for them, understand and support them more, and give something of yourself. It's a beautiful way to strengthen connection and safety. And we know certainly in Cisco, giving back is absolutely at the heart of our culture as an organization. And I love the fact we're talking about building resilience and enable well-being, but this starts with the individual taking accountability for yourself, but also learning and taking accountability with others as well. And then as a team, how do we play your unique part in communities? Really learning, getting the insights, having the intelligence and meaning so that you can enable best work as well. And taking accountabilities, I've talked about that from the individual perspective, but think about the team experience. Because if you have a great team experience, business performance will come naturally. And I touched on the giving back to not just within the teams that you're in, but also to the communities within Cisco, and obviously further afield as well. And so we make sure that we're providing resources for leaders, because it's all very well having words on a slide, but how do you actually action this and really put things into place? So we've been doing some Power Teams virtual health checks, which is really where you can dig deeper a little bit with the people, understanding what's going on for them at home, but also understanding what's going on for them within the team environment and also the work that you're all doing together. And then we have a great learning platform where you can find information on everything from inclusion and diversity through to well-being, through to how do you actually lead during change. And that's on a platform that we have called Degreed. And of course, we want to make sure that people understand all the fabulous well-being offerings that we have within Cisco. So we signpost them to all of that. And we put some extra things in place during the pandemic that we had as well, just to make sure that everything was easy, simple to find, and you don't need to be running around when people are going through difficult times. We have to know where to find this information and signpost it to them.
So the second area we're going to talk about is the changing nature of work. So this is how one of the aspects we talk about here is how long people stay with their employer. So if you looked at the baby boomers, on average, they would stay with their employer for around 7 years. Millennials, that dropped to 2 years. And when you look at the kind of everything in the papers now, you hear about the gig economy, 0-hour contracts, and all these kind of things. But what that really means is where in the past you could wait 6 months, 12 months, 18 months for somebody to be really good at their role and drive maximum value. Today, you need to accelerate the time to value of a new employee. Teams are going to be rapidly forming, disbanding. So that agility and fluidity you can help leverage technology to deliver really allows you to make the most of this changing nature of work. So it works with employees and the employer. And one of the elements which rolls into this is when you do go back into the offices, we speak about huddle rooms. So, and these have become even more important with the nature of social distancing everybody's going to have to live with. So these are unbookable rooms for 2 to 5 people, but when you need to jump into a space to make a quick call, you can do that. Then you come out of the meeting room to maintain your social distance and allow the next person to go into that room to deliver their calls. And these types of rooms are going to represent almost 70% of all video conferencing rooms by 2022. And personally, I think that could be even higher. So when you think about the way work has changed, we've gone from being individual contributors to agile teams. And this year alone, you'll see that there's a 500% increase in the information created. Now, obviously, lots of organisations were more desk-bound than we've been fortunate enough to be at Cisco, but now people have been forced to be allowed to work from everywhere. Now, even before COVID, if you look at the research from Frost and Sullivan, 90% of organisations plan to offer some form of mobility to their workers in 2020. And the reality is that's now 100%. And obviously people well versed in working internally, walking to the floor below, speaking to a colleague 4 desks away. But the importance of ecosystem collaboration is critical. And this is how you foster innovation, creativity with organizations outside of your organization. So you need the tools that allow you to securely do that. And when you think about the kind of people's work styles, so we look at kind of 5 types of workers. So the desk worker, that's pretty self-explanatory. They work from a desk. You have a telecommuting worker that work from different locations, offices, coffee shops, homes. Remote workers live in a geographically distant location from their office. So you heard Sheila touch on earlier, 9% of the Cisco workforce pre-COVID never went to an office. They had no assigned desk or chair in an office. Then you have mobile workers who are extensive travelers, and the deskless worker who doesn't just sit at a desk when they need to work. Now, obviously, all these have their own dynamics, but what you need is every single one of them needs access to the same consistent tool. So wherever you are on these 5 types of personas, you can deliver your job and thrive. Now, what we have seen are some uniquities tied to remote workers and deskless workers tied to COVID. And there have been some positives that have come from people's experiences. So we're going to double click into these. So when we think about a remote worker, this is about how you can look at the geographic scope of recruitment, and Sheila's going to take us through that.
Yeah, I think this quote here from Richard Branson is, pretty important. Your employees are your company's real competitive advantage. They're the ones making the magic happen, so long as their needs are being met. And I think this is so true. And I think you think about the talent that you're hiring in the organization. I think that, it's probably never been more exciting to think of doing this a little bit differently. And so, Mark, if you move to the next slide, you think about, there's a few, these are some job ads that have come from our website, which talks about the fact that you can see here, it doesn't really matter what role you're going to do, but you look at the location. There used to be such a location strategy, but with the remote opportunities, you can think about getting the best talent wherever they are based. So you see here, we talk about, we want this role, anyone, anywhere in Europe is the focus here. But it means you've got much more, opportunity to pool the best possible talent. So I think this remote working is really going to help us as we think about hiring talent in the future as well.
So the other side of this is the concept of deskless workers. So if you think about your first day at your role, I'd imagine it's much like my first day at Cisco. I went to my desk, facilities came to see me, said, here's your seats, here's your screen, here's a footstool, here's where you put your arms, off you go. So clearly that's not happening at the moment. Facilities are not coming to my house or your house. So to be productive, it's really important to have the right device for the job. And for years, organizations have been fighting what is called hunched over laptop syndrome. And it's what you'll see in the picture here, where people's shoulders are hunched over, they're leaning forwards, they're in a terrible position for their health and well-being. Take, for example, at the moment, so my wife's having to work from the pull-out desk under my 5-year-old daughter's cabin bed. So clearly that's not going to be the height of an adult desk. And she's given a pain across her neck, across her shoulders. And even with the billions of dollars spent on facilities and ergonomics, this is still prevalent even in the offices before people came home. So the way we address this ourselves is within the use of our technologies is one way we do this. So on the screen here, you have what we call the Desk Pro, and it's an intelligent device that allows you to be stood up or sat down, and it will optimize the view for the person on the remote end, however it is most comfortable for you to be positioned. And if we look at my team's offices here, we've got represented Richmond, Hook, Colorado, Chicago, New Jersey, and Philadelphia. So you top left and bottom right, you see the smallest offices. So myself and my colleague Chris have just had to grab what space we have in our houses. So my office used to be the garden shed, and I had it converted into a proper building, a proper space where I can work from. You can tell that Chris is the technical guy on the team because he's got 5 screens, 2 keyboards, and a very big glass of coffee. So That's the different work styles to allow us to do our best in the space we have available. On the bottom left, you have Stuart's desk. That's a sit-stand desk. So he can work standing up from home. Really important for health and well-being. And then when we look at some of my colleagues that are based in the US, a bit of a stereotype, but I think it's fair to say American houses are bigger on the most part than houses in West London, unless you're very, very wealthy. They've got whole rooms in their house they use for their offices. But the common thing when you look at all these spaces is video is front and center. Every one of us have a proper video endpoint because we are on calls all day long. And that's how we avoid this hunched over laptop syndrome by using the right tools for our health and well-being. Now, obviously that sounds quite technical, Sheila. We're talking about video endpoints, and we're very fortunate in that we are a very mature company. We've worked from home quite a long time, so it made sense for me to build a dedicated office at the end of my garden. But what role does people and communities play when it comes to this type of health and safety in the workplace?
Well, I think it's just so important, as you say, you know, everybody's got different types of work environments and also situations. So, you know, there's many employees who've probably got children at home, you know, your partners at home working there as well. So I think that there's so many things that we're having to consider right now. And what is so important is that people are thinking about their workspace and how they can be their, you know, almost just like be their best possible position so they can actually get great work done. And so we spend some time making sure that we've got virtual ergonomic assessments taking place, as you say. Sometimes that used to be direct one-to-one in the office, but we've really increased the number of people being able to get those virtual ergonomic checks so that they can understand what is the equipment that I need, but also more to do with what's the stretching that I need to do throughout my day, but also where do I position everything on the desk is so important. So there's some great guides out there as well. We provide. The other quite fun thing that we're doing as well is running some desk-size exercises virtually, so that when we're doing our webinars, we actually spend some time focusing on getting up and moving around and doing some stretching, which most people probably won't have been doing throughout the day. Another brilliant reminder to put that seed in everybody's head as they go throughout their working day.
Thank you, Sheila. So the third element we're going to talk about is clearly a hot topic. We've inferred this throughout the content today about this demand for flexibility. So as already shared, 90% of employees were looking to support flexible working this year. Based on what's been going on, clearly everyone has. But what really matters, it's more about the ideology tied to it. Where you work is becoming irrelevant. Work is no longer about banking X number of hours. It's about delivering on the tasks you need to do to make your organisation successful. It's about output, not hours. So obviously London's seen a boom of co-working spaces. Obviously they're going to have to evolve as people go back based on social distancing. And almost 80% of UK workers demand workplace flexibility. And we've seen statistics about people happy to take 10% less money to work from home 2 to 3 days a week. So the importance of this, it benefits the organisation and it benefits individuals. But when people are working from home, we've spoken about how it's more than just a meeting. How do you ensure your employees feel co-located even when they're not? And we've got a couple quick examples we want to share here. Okay, so now where we are now in the virtual world is we have things we took for granted that we could do in the office that we can no longer do now. So when we're in the office, you'd be looking around your desk, looking to see when your co-workers put the phone down. So you can kind of go and grab their attention, have that 5 minutes, get that answer you need at that point in time. So clearly we can't do that now. So you need to use the tools in the software to check the status of your co-worker. Are they on a call? Are they on a meeting? Are they available? Have they got do not disturb on? So you can still get that immediate answer to a question, the virtual poking your head around a cubicle, if that's how your office is laid out, to get what you need to move your project forwards. Then we think about the fun side of things, lunches, socials, birthdays. So that's a huge part of being in the office and how you can foster that team environment, that team engagement. Now, when you try and do that virtually, you need to build what would have been thought of as more consumer-like tools into a business application. So Giphies, emojis, icons that bring a bit of fun to the day, even when you're not directly with people day in, day out, to still foster that team environment. We touched earlier on a bit about kind of whiteboarding, the importance of ideation and brainstorming. Now, at the moment, obviously, lots of organizations are under pressure. So you cannot just stop innovating because everybody's at home. It's so critically important that you actually probably need to innovate more than you ever had before. So how do you get your workers to do that from home? That is using our video endpoints, where you have the basically fully featured interactive whiteboards on their home desks, via the WebEx software, whether they're using an iPad, a Samsung device, their laptop. As many people as you need to can collaborate and iterate simultaneously on documents, on presentations, on designs, whatever it may be. So as an organization, you can continue to innovate. And then we look at the mass events. So Cisco run loads of events all year long, and now we haven't got any to at least March. And some of those have tens of thousands of people that will attend. So all those are moving virtually, and within our single experience within WebEx, we provide the ability to host those virtual events, stream it out to Facebook and other platforms as you require. So your business does not need to cease. You can still communicate en masse as you would do normally, without any disruption to that. And the way we do that is via our WebEx platform. It's a single experience, the unified app, which provides everything your employees need to do their full job from home: meeting, messaging, calling, whiteboarding, file transfer, synchronous chat, one-to-one chat. Everything you can imagine to allow your employees to work and collaborate is in this single experience. And for your IT teams, they can manage it all in one place, which is a massive time saver and value driver for them. Now, if you think about it at the moment, when it comes to the actual office space, everyone's at home. That's a no-brainer. So what's it going to be like as people start to go back? Lockdowns easing at a different pace in different locations around the world. So there is going to be some aspect of going back into an office. We're speaking to our customers. When you think about kind of social distancing, we seem to hear this 30% figure a lot. So where offices will be at 30% capacity. And that could be a rotation of staff. This could be certain roles have to go in and other roles do not. But so each and every organization needs to find their own sweet spot based on the industry in and their particular work styles. But you're still going to have a huge portion of people working at home, and the tools they use need to be interchangeable between home and being in the office and when they're on the go. So when we look at our own offices, how we're redesigning them is that we need to think about the needs for social distancing and the needs for collaboration. So what you see replicated in this image here is you have a formal meeting room with a social area outside of it. So the idea being that people will be at home the vast majority of the time, but when they go into an office, it will be for a particular need, a particular meeting. When you're in that meeting, you'll be in the traditional formal meeting room, socially distanced with alerts built into the endpoints if there's too many people in the space. When you're not in your meeting, you'll be in the social area, collaborating with colleagues, socializing, building that team environment, and you'll move between spaces as the day determines. The other thing we need to think about is the security side of things. So when people work in an office, they obviously have to badge in. There's lots and lots of training we all go through about keeping the workplace safe and secure. Now, when you're at home, you do not badge into your house, and you're also relying on people's home networks and some other technologies, their own devices that they may be using. And as with many of the big events which have shocked the world over time, there's always been people that have tried to profiteer from it. And we've seen numerous examples of certain meeting platforms being hacked, being raided, people coming into those meetings uninvited and sharing porn and violent images, even to school children. So clearly that is unacceptable. And as a people and communities function, obviously part of the role is to provide a safe and secure workplace. So from a technology perspective, obviously, we are one of the largest security vendors in the world. So we have to build security within our collaboration experiences for that part of the business to remain credible. So we have all our collab experiences are end-to-end encrypted. From the foundations of the technology, security is built in. We are 100% committed to data privacy and protection and fully transparent with our platforms, patches that are needed, and we enable our customers to be able to ensure they can keep their employees secure. Now, again, this is a bit of an IT slide and what we do from a technology perspective. But Sheila, what's the role HR play and people communities when it comes to keeping the workplace and employees secure?
Well, thanks, Mark. And it's absolutely critical that we make sure that we look after our employees' data every single day, all day long. And so as we engage with vendors and our partners that we work with to deliver our people and communities offerings, we go through a very rigorous process to ensure that their security measures are as good as ours. And so it's actually quite a challenging process, but it's really good because we're pushing the boundaries for the vendors and the partners that we work with as well to ensure that they've got the best possible security in place. So we're looking after our employees' data. So why don't we switch to a conversation a little bit more focused on well-being itself? And I think what's important to see is some of the things that we hear people saying to us at the moment. Everything from the always on piece. There's an issue with sleep right now. There's an issue with the back-to-back meetings happening more and more, and I hear this from other peer companies I talk to as well. I think because people aren't traveling as much, they then think that they can add more meetings into our diaries. And there is definitely a feeling of and a risk of our people becoming more burnt out. There's the time zone challenges, and we really need to pay attention to this and understand how we meet our people across all time zones, particularly in global roles, and really respecting the boundaries that people have. A lot of people are feeling overwhelmed, not just from the work perspective, but just with everything that's going on right now and keeping up with what the challenges are, not just in the workplace, but in the world as well. So let's look at some of the data related to well-being. If we think about it, so there's 1 in 4 suffering from mental health issues. And quite honestly, that figure is definitely increasing right now during this pandemic. Many people are suffering mentally with the situation that they're faced with. And it's important for everybody to understand that and know more about that. And also we think about, 50% of workers by 2030 are going to be suffering from chronic health conditions. That's long-term health conditions that need a lot of support on a regular basis. And poor health actually can result in up to 6 weeks a year of productivity loss. So when people are not feeling well, they will not be productive and therefore will not be able to enable the business results. If you had a break for every 15 minutes of time that you're working, productivity will increase by around 25%. So the stats are there. Let's move on to why Cisco is so focused on well-being right now. Well, if we think about the communities that we support, we're the #1 world's best workplace, a fabulous accolade to have. And I talked a little bit about a focus and how we give back to our communities. And we do focus on full spectrum inclusion in everything that we're doing. And then I've talked about our conscious culture that we have. That's where you feel like you belong. It's about your being aware of one another and inclusive of each other. And it's also offering a safe place for people to talk and say that they might need some help. We have a huge focus on leaders and teams and making sure that we're building the best teams within the organization and enabling our leaders to do the best possible work within their teams, for their teams and for the business. And we do this through living our principles, building trust and focusing on strengths and values. But I truly believe you can't do any of those things I've just talked about without focus on yourself, the individual total well-being, what we call the whole you in Cisco. This is where you take accountability for yourself, you focus on building resilience, and it's how you deal with life challenges that come at you. So let's dive a bit deeper into what we mean by the whole you. This is you at your best every single day. So it's thinking about your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, your social well-being, and your financial well-being. From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment you go to bed at night, and the sleep that you then have. So from a physical well-being perspective, it's about bringing small things throughout the day to focus on moving regularly, focusing on your preventative health as well, and really practicing self-care, thinking about the quality sleep that you want to get, and also taking time out from work to actually rest and recharge. Emotional well-being, focusing on your mental health and building that resilience that we all need to have. Focusing on yourself first and foremost, understanding yourself to enable you to be able to connect to family, friends, and perhaps a purpose in life that you believe in as well. And really feeling like you can seek help when needed. The social well-being, these are the connections that you have each and every day, thinking about being vulnerable and sharing stories with one another to help each other through some of the difficult times that we might face. And also celebrating moments and really thinking about how you play to your strengths. And where you get to know your team. So when you ask somebody, how are you today? It's about sitting back and actively listening to what that individual's saying so that you can get to know them a bit better. And from a financial well-being perspective, something probably that isn't talked about very much within the workplace, but actually we do need to think about how we're aware of our finances, being able to address any immediate needs that we have and planning for the future as well. And then there's an opportunity to optimize the benefit options that you might be given. We like to think about it as thinking about it in 4 areas of our life: eat, sweat, think, and connect. Making small, sustainable changes throughout your life in each of those areas allows you to provide a really simple framework of how you're going to go about your daily activities. And so here's a few tips that you can think about that might help during this time particularly, but really, how do you become you at your best? Well, thinking about what you do first thing in the morning. If you're going to grab your device, it's probably not a great start to the day. But thinking about what's the rituals and the routines that you want to have to get yourself going. What are the gratitudes that you might want to think about doing as you start your day? What are you grateful for? And then really thinking about, don't work from your bed if at all possible, but having a space that is separate to where you actually, enjoy your downtime, if you like. So making sure that there's a space that you can have where you connect to your work, and then you come out of that in order to be in your home life as well. So prioritization, I think, is also critical. When you write a list down and you think about what do you want to focus on, what are the 3 most important things, get to those first, and you'll find you're able to get to many other things throughout the day. But make sure you focus on what's most important. And then exercise is so important for us all. It really does lift our mood. And it doesn't matter what form of exercise you choose, whether it's taking a short walk, or it might be a Pilates or a yoga section, or it might be a stretching session, but really think about how you get movement built into the day is so important. So you'll see a few more tips here on the slide. And what I'd love to do is share a video with you now, which looks at some of the things that we've been doing in Cisco. It was actually before the pandemic, but you'll see some great ideas that people have of connecting together, but also connecting virtually as well. Let's roll the video.
Well-being is a conversation. The Cisco Pavelka initiative started as an opportunity for each individual within Cisco to create a conscious culture around well-being. It's inclusive, it's holistic. That means everybody can take part. So no matter who you are, where you're from, you can contribute. My name is Jesse Pavelka, and I'm the Health and Wellbeing Ambassador for Cisco. The Cisco Pavelka initiative is based around my philosophy of health: eat, sweat, think, and connect. 4 areas of your life that if you open up to and create some small changes around, some pretty incredible things can happen. Whether you're a leader of a team or an individual in a team, we all have an opportunity to demonstrate and encourage, to share the message and the mission to bring well-being into the culture within Cisco. Remember, well-being is a conversation, and every day you have an opportunity to wake up and bring the 4 elements to life in your world, both at home and at Cisco.
So we offer our employees the opportunity to come together as a community, as you'll see within that video, and we provide the Pavelka House for Cisco, which really allows them to share some of their best practices and what they're doing to make small changes around Eat, Sweat, Think, and Connect. And so as we come on to think about, okay, we are the #1 world's best workplace, 2019. What do we do to make sure that we maintain that and continuously build a bridge between the gaps that we might see in our culture? We really want to go after thinking about how we continuously maintain a great place for our employees to work in. And we look at, as you see, everything from the workplace and the technology that we enable our employees to use throughout their daily lives, through to the well-being and the focus on our conscious culture in Cisco. So just to check in, Mark, anything else you want to add as we make a close here today?
No, I think that's everything. I think the key elements to take away from what we share today is the focus on that balance between the employer and the employee. Obviously, everyone has had their work and life shaken around quite a lot of late, and the role kind of people and communities can play in allowing the organisation to grow and thrive, in keeping the employees engaged, but also keeping them secure to ensure that they're only using technologies which are fit for purpose and can really allow the organisation and protect everybody as we go about their day-to-day roles. So thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you found that insightful and interesting. You can reach out to either Sheila or myself on LinkedIn or Twitter if you have any questions, and we look forward to having a dialogue with you. Sheila, anything to add?
Thanks so much for joining. Just the last thing to add is to say, take care, be kind to yourself and be kind to others around you, and really show compassion and be aware of what you're doing and the impact that you can have on each other. Thanks very much for joining today.